This is a video that I have wanted to do for a long time. Hey y'all, I'm JamesWright and welcome to Wizards News. It is time to find out who in the world actually plays this game. So the other day I put out a questionnaire asking a bunch of questions about Wizards Unite players, and I put it here on YouTube. I also put it on several of the Reddit pages, put it on a couple of the Discords, put it in several of the Facebook posts, and so we're really getting responses from all across the wizarding world, and I want to find out, Wizards Unite players, who are they? And we finally have enough information to actually come down here and look at some of the data. So here we go. This is broken up. This is basically straight off of the forum. This is raw data. Now, I have to say, there were a few people who started spamming it, and I had to clean up some of the information. So this is the raw data with all of the spammed information. Most of those were places where people played none, or they don't play Wizards Unite. So later I'm going to take you and show you some of the information where I've actually pulled that out, so you can look at just the people who played Wizards Unite, as well as there were several times where the exact same thing was put in like 50 times, and I went through and deleted those. So this information's a little bit off, but it's close enough you can kind of get the ideas. So how often, on average, do you play? And what we basically want to look at, there were about 10% who played 15 minutes or less a day, and then there's about 20% who played about a half hour or less. This is the largest chunk. Most people are playing somewhere between a half hour and an hour long, so about a third of the people playing. And then the second biggest one is an hour to 2 hours. So most people are playing pretty active most days. And then there is this larger group that plays more than 2 hours every day. And I'm actually surprised at 12%. I was expecting to be more than 12 hours a day, being like 3 or 4%. So it is a pretty active group. The people who are there are fairly solidly into the game. Now, in this next question, I really want to figure out, is someone rural or is someone urban? And I can't just ask, do you consider yourself a rural player or an urban player? Because I know people who are in a city of 20,000 and they consider themselves to be an urban player. And I know other people who are in a city of 200,000 and they consider themselves to be a rural player. So I wanted to ask people, how big is the city that you are in? And some people, this was a hard thing because they may play in one city and live in another city. And so you kind of had to guess around with it. And also, I had it originally at the top number was 200,000 or higher, thinking that there really aren't going to be that many people in big cities playing it. But I was really surprised, and so very quickly I had to take this out and add in more. So there are 53 responses that should be in either this 200 to 500, 500 to a million, or a million above. And even then, a million and above is almost a quarter of the players. So maybe I should have broken it down into, a million to 2 million, 2 million to 3 million, and so on. But basically, anyone over a million players is an urban player. So this is kind of the way to do it. So depending upon where you draw the line, rural to urban, for me, most of the time, I'm going to be drawing the line somewhere around the 50,000 mark. So somewhere around 40% of the players are what I would consider to be rural, and 60% are urban. But depending upon where you draw that line, and then some people, I've been to a few places with a town of 1,000 people that has 30 inns in it, because there was one person who submitted a ton of stuff there. But every place is a little bit different. So this is kind of something that's interesting to look at, but depending upon how you look at it, you can get a lot of information on this or almost none. Next, what is your profession? And this is one that I really wanted to know. What is professor to Auror to Magizoologist? And we can come down here and holy cow, this really, really surprised me. I thought that it was going to be Auror and professor were equal at like 40% each, and then it would be 20% Magizoologist. But wow, it is almost half of all players are professor. That really surprised me. So if you're getting into the game and you're thinking, where can I be the most benefit? Magizoologist for sure, but Auror, that's pretty good. So yeah, it's really surprising. And then there are a bunch of people who said, I do focus on 2 or all 3. And this is only like 13 people, so 0.5%. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. Next, operating system. Do you use iOS or Android? This is one of those contentious ones, and I thought this would be kind of interesting, but it was about 50-50. Now, I wasn't going to put other in there because really what other is there, but apparently there are Let's see if I can even click on it here. I can't click on it. I think it was like 2 responses out of this. So 2 responses out of 2,800 were saying that they are on other. What those are, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. Right about 50-50. Slightly more Android, but not by much. Of course, if this were a political poll, then that would mean that Android had a landslide win. But yeah, no, it's about 50-50. And then this next one. Now, this next one is probably a bit confusing, and I wanted to have aggregatable information. So I wanted to have something I could put against each other. And I wanted to see how often do you play Wizards Unite as to do you play other games, and we could pull one from the other. So we can come down here and we see the people who play Wizards Unite every day. There were 2,625 of them. So pretty much everyone who answered this question was they play Wizards Unite every day, out of the 2,800 some that were actually drawn from this. So then there are a few others, and then these nevers I pulled out in the other information we'll be looking at in a minute. Of those, about a third of them also play Pokemon Go every day, which that actually kind of surprised me. I heard from a fairly reputable source it was only about 10%. So these are people who play both games pretty much every day, and that was really surprising. Of them, about half of the Wizards Unite players do not play Pokemon Go at all. It's actually a little bit less than half, but half of the players do play both games. And so then I wanted to say, if for some reason both community days were at the same time, which one would you pick? And I think I confused some people with this question of because there are a lot of people who out there who are going to be playing both. Either they're going to be bouncing back and forth, or they're going to have 2 phones, or they're going to be having the gacha on one and then the phone on the other. And I really wanted to force people to pick one or the other. So originally I was going to have, do you play Wizards Unite, do you play Pokemon Go, or do you play both? And then I thought, no, let's drop the both and force people to choose. If you had to choose between Pokemon Go and Wizards Unite, which one would you choose? Now this is out of Wizards Unite players. So I expected it to be a decent margin, but I was actually really surprised. About a quarter of all Wizards Unite players say that they would pick Pokemon Go over Wizards Unite. But about 3/4 of the players said Wizards Unite. And then there was one where I accidentally put in the answer of 44. Oops, but that was on me. I took that out in the other data. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. A quarter of Wizards Unite players would pick Pokemon Go over Wizards Unite if they were absolutely forced to pick. Now, I know a lot of those players will be trying to play both during this particular community day, but that's kind of interesting. Surprisingly large number. And then for these last two, these are kind of hard to read, but I mean, you can basically look at this and say the biggest group is the late 20s and the early 30s. That is what, probably like 40%, a little over 40% is total between those. I want to look at a bar graph that actually makes this a little more interesting. And then down here we have all of the individual data. So this is out of 2,600 entries. These are all the individual data about what is your current level. I want to look at another chart that actually cleans this up and makes it a little clearer. So here is all of the raw data, and I will have a link to this sheet down below as well as a link to the aggregated data we just looked at. So if you want to see this raw data, if you want to go and pull numbers out and figure out other things, go ahead and click the link down below, because there's a lot of interesting things you could pull out of this and say, of the people who play Wizards Unite every day, what about this? Or of the people who play Wizards Unite once a week, what about this? And there's a lot of things you could cross-reference about that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys pull out of this information. But yes, all of these almost 3,000 entries are in here. So I've added a few other charts that make this a little bit clearer. So number one, how much time do you actually spend playing Wizards Unite every day? So most people, it peaks here pretty clearly at somewhere between a half hour and an hour. Pretty good, but I'm surprised that more than 2 hours a day is actually a greater number than less than 15 minutes a day on average. So some pretty clear information there. Next, what is the population of the city you play in? And here you can see this is the number I had earlier. So 54 of these should be aggregated into these three, so you can kind of get an idea of that. Surprisingly, there's a big bump up at the 10,000 to 50,000, and then it kind of tapers back down, and then a huge bump up at the over 1 million. So yeah, depending upon where you draw the line for rural versus urban, this is kind of surprising. And there are those 86 people who are absolute diehards playing in a town of under 1,000. That's not easy to do, but kind of interesting to see how all those numbers shake out. For the what's your main profession, this is just, I think I like the bar graph a little bit better, but I was kind of still surprised at how many people play, how many people try to duel or triple. I think in tripling, there were, what, 3 people? Woohoo! So yeah. But then we can come down to the age, and this is where things really start to get surprising. You can see on the chart here a very clear growth here that there are a lot of people older than I expected playing. We even have a few people in their 70s playing. Yeah, this is rather interesting. So the vast majority of people are late 20s into their 30s. So that is kind of the goal. I've seen several charts like this for Pokemon Go where the main number is early 20s. And then it tapers off from there. So apparently Wizards Unite is a little bit older. But then the last one, I really was interested in this one. I wanted to see how does my level compare against everyone else's level? What is currently the average level of all of the players? Where is the progression and the bell curve on this? And I wasn't sure if we were going to get some clear data on this, but we really did get some very, very clear information on this. So here you can see basically the current average is low 30s. Around 32 is the high number right here. So 32 to 34, somewhere in that range is about average. So if you're out here in the 40s, you're actually well ahead of the curve. And there are a few people up in their 60s, and I got to find this one. Someone put down 33.5. So I got to go clean that one up. But you know who you are if you put in 33.5. So this is an interesting graph. You can kind of see where you are on this chart and compare. It's kind of cool. So again, if you want links to all this information, they're down in the description below. If you can't find the description, look below the video, and there is a down arrow that you can then open up to see the actual description. The description's hidden until you click that down arrow, and you can open it up and see everything. So all the links are down there, and go ahead and pull this out. And I'd love to see if you find anything interesting out of the data. I'm thinking about doing some aggregation between one and the other, and I wanted to leave this open for everyone so you can go and have a little bit of fun. So definitely take a look at it and let me know what you find. I'm really looking forward to Community Day tomorrow. I hope everything is set up. Also, if you have any port keys to open, you may want to hold off on opening them until the actual event starts and use your Barufios then, because the Barufio gives you 3 times the XP. So that might be quite a bit. I know several people who have been holding on to some 10K port keys because they want to open them when that comes out. So yes, looking forward to a crazy amount of XP. 3 times XP. This is going to be interesting. And for those of you who have been asking, from what I understand, I haven't gotten a clear-cut answer from this direct from the horse's mouth, but from everything I can see, all port keys are cut in half. So that means the 1K port keys that you find during the event, as long as you put the key in during the event, in other words, don't put it in before, put it in during the event, any of the port keys that you run during the event will be half time. So theoretically, those 1K port keys will be half Ks, which means you could pop through those really, really quickly. So good luck to everyone tomorrow. And before I leave, there's actually one more piece of information that came out. There are now some more of the sponsored fortresses in Mexico. So if you are in Mexico, go ahead and look for AT&T stores. So now they are in Australia, Mexico, Japan, US, Korea, Germany, and the UK. And they're continuing to roll out. So hopefully more sponsored fortresses coming to where you're at. So I think that'll about do it for today. If you did like the video, please hit like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell. All those things really do help out the channel. And thank you. Those do mean a lot. And until next time, have a magical day. Okay, let's open up. It's time for another pop head on the advent calendar. And today is the 13th. So we got to do the 12th and the 13th today. I didn't get one out yesterday. So today we got, who is it? Ooh, Cho Chang. Nice, Cho Chang. And our second one in number 13 is, Madame Maxime. So here you can see Madame Maxime. I really like her dress. And Cho Chang. And yes, Madame Maxime is actually taller by a considerable margin. So that's kind of cool to compare them. Really cool. Hopefully I'll get Hagrid here soon.